My guest on Dan Really Likes Wine this week has some rich wine heritage to draw from. Some of those great wine areas like Namibia and Saudi Arabia, plugging into a career that has much reason to celebrate because this is 10 years of producing what is quite simply one of South Africa's definitive Pinot Noirs as part of now growing empire, which now also has this wonderful sprawling farm as part of this charming wine fairy tale that we're able to celebrate today. Jessica Saurwein, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dan. Great to be on the show.
And happy birthday, 10 years in.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a great journey.
Is it one of those things where at exactly the same moment it feels like it was just yesterday, but also 1,000 years that you've been doing it?
Yeah, I think a lot of water under the bridge, so I can definitely feel it. I'm not where I was 10 years ago, but it's been a great journey, and it's just incredible actually that I've already arrived. 10 years.
The elements that build up to this wine story, there's, I think your parents were in Namibia, your parents in Saudi Arabia, two areas we don't normally associate with the world of wine. But your mum's South African, your dad's German, two great wine producing countries. Are they real wine drinkers? Were they a driving inspiration to finding your way into the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. From, I think, the age of 13 or so, I was allowed to have a little thimble of wine with every ceremonious Sunday meal, for example. And my mum used to cart, across the ocean back to Germany, many of the South African wonders at the time. It was Alles verloren and Kanonkop and so on. And so, with our little crystal glassware from Germanic origin, we were enjoying these wines together, and there was always just so much celebration around that. So I think that definitely was where my sort of initial interest in wine came from.
Which is great to have as a platform, but that obviously then has to translate into, well, this is maybe an industry I'd like to be part of a little more formally. What triggered that?
I think, I took a gap year after school, and I went to work in Tulbagh, of all places.
This is where you were the assistant winemaker with absolutely zero qualifications.
Correct.
Was this a case of, look, I don't know anything about it, or did you pretend to know a little bit more than perhaps you actually did?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just an opportunity. I was passionate. I wanted to learn. I had two able hands, and there was the very spooky cellar with rickety ladders. And after a couple of late nights on the ladders with yeast buckets, I thought this adventure has to become my life's mission. And I used to ride around on horseback through the vineyards, taking samples in buckets, and I just thought, wow, this is it. So I then pursued the path by going to work in Châteauneuf-du-Pape and Baume-de-Venise in France in the same year. And I applied to study at Stellenbosch University to do the BSc, which was tough for me because I didn't have any science experience at school. I was really more of an art and language kid. But it was fascinating, and once I immersed myself and I applied my mind, I was able to sort of decipher that language quite carefully.
Riding around on horseback, heading off to Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It all sounds very romantic and very cool, but it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of long hours, and I think it teaches you very quickly whether or not you're actually cut out for this kind of life.
Absolutely. I think, those toiling hours in Châteauneuf-du-Pape with absolutely no wind, in the sweltering heat, bigger heat than I've ever felt in Wellington. It was certainly, a dedication, but I managed to push through, and now I'm at the other end. I've realized that every little bit is hard work, but it's not only my hands that make it happen. And you always need a good team and a good effort from everyone around you to make it possible.
You're like so many of the great winemakers, you're very quick to pass on lots of credit to other people. But I do know how much you've worked, both because I've heard you talk about it, but I've also heard your far less hardworking husband speak about it as well. But in that build-up to kicking that off, I get the sense there was that simmering dream of I want to be a winemaker, but you had to do some things before you could get there. There were student debts to pay off, and there were feet to be found, and you needed to be able to lay some sort of platform before this winemaking dream could kick off.
Absolutely, yeah. It was quite a big dedication because I had to, pay for my own studies and work at the same time. But all those opportunities actually helped me just to get my fingers into the industry quicker. And in my second year already, I was working at the tasting room for the Rupert wines, where I learned a lot, and I was able to earn a bit on the side. And then in my third year, I worked at Bushard Finlayson in the vineyard, which was great. It was also just extramural, basically. And there I was able to help establish the Kaimansgat vineyard, which I now get fruit from years later. So yeah, it definitely helped me to sort of find my ways in quicker into actual work in the industry.
That's such a seminal vineyard in the South African wine story, and there's wine from that Kaimansgat vineyard that pitches up in Tulbach in bubbles and pitches up in Chardonnay and the Hemelanada. Did you have any sense as that was creating that this was something extra special? And how does it make you feel now, not just from having fruit at it, but looking back and going, hey, I'm part of that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge privilege. I was able to work under Peter Finlayson at Bushard Finlayson, and he established that vineyard with the owners of the property, the Roux family, and it's been in their family for 4 generations. And of course, he had his son in mind. And years later, Peter Allen then offered me some grapes from there, and I've been able to, sort of also help with the health of the vineyard to sort of keep it going, and that's been a great privilege. So yeah, it's amazing to be part of that journey. I did stand there in 2008 while establishing these little growth tubes and thought to myself, if ever I could make a wine, it would have to be from a vineyard like this that has snow in the winter in the vineyard, and that has such immense altitude, lying at 700 meters above sea level. The difference between day and nighttime temperatures is vast, and that makes it really special. But it's also an incredible sight because you drive through weeping willows, past apple orchards, and then your car gets scratched with the bramble bushes, so it's a really mystical place, very special.
It gave you all of this rich experience and this learning. I mean, you were in sales and marketing, and you're working in different tasting rooms, you're helping create vineyards. So by the time you hit the year you turn 30 and the first wine is produced, you've got quite a lot of experience, quite a lot of background, but it's still a really daunting thing to take on. And it's not like you're inheriting your parents' vineyard or you've got brilliant Belgian investors who are throwing loads of money at you. This is very much a roll your sleeves up and get stuff done yourself project.
Yeah, sure. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm my own boss, which is good. And, it's for the long haul. We're doing this little farm in Stanford for the next 40, 50, 60 years, and hopefully our children will take some interest, and I think they already have. So my little son, Alexander, is about to turn 8. He was helping me top my barrels just recently. And that's incredible, on his own accord. Mama, please, can I help you?
That is a lovely feeling. Those early days, kind of getting things going, because you were jumping from cellar to cellar, you were getting up at silly hours in the morning to travel halfway across the winelands to make wine. That says to me, here's somebody who properly wants to do this. This isn't a nice to do. This is an absolute passion. This is a calling.
Yeah, probably. It was an exciting time in the beginning, having to find my way around, and there was really no cellar space to rent. So that was a tricky part. And then I would always have to just sort of see, how can I make this cellar space work? And then as I went along, I met the most incredible people, and the wine industry really supported me in that, I worked alongside somebody like Matthew van Heerden for some time, Ryan Mustard, and then Catherine Marshall, who established her own cellar as well in Stellenbosch. So people have all been helpful, and it's been incredible to have that network. You can always just phone up a friend from the industry and say, well, what do you think? Where can I make wine? Or I don't have this equipment, can I borrow it quickly? And so there's this strong camaraderie, which has also enabled me to pursue the passion that I have.
Amongst this incredible group of people you've met in the wine world is a rather dashing young man who was with Wine Cellar and now Wine Business Advisors, and Strauss, who's impossibly good looking and knows everything about wine and is utterly charming. You and Roland Peens are now one of the real power couples of South African wine, and you now seem, or surely they're made in the heavens, these two, to be together. But how did you first meet? And was it the wine that brought you together?
Yeah, so I was working at Bushard Finlayson in the tasting room, and I had Neil Martin there and Roland Peens, and I wasn't quite sure who was who. I thought the one was awfully good looking, and I then Googled him.
And the other one was Roland.
Unfortunately, it was the one living in South Africa that was very handsome. So I realized I was buying wine from him for a lot of the Bushard Finlayson tastings I was hosting. And I guess I maybe stalked him a bit. And yeah, so then, he's been an incredible partner and supported my journey and my vision all along. And in fact, we got married in 2015, which was the year that I made my first vintage of the Pinot. So yeah, he's been there in the background all along. And, as the business has grown, he's really helped me a lot with the outlook of the accounting, his strength and my weakness. So I can just be the creative force and, the logical and the practical force behind it.
But also incredible sounding boards for each other, because you work in very different parts of the wine industry, but it's not the biggest industry. So to have that ability to bounce off each other must be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, we definitely have found our passion through wine. And I think a lot of people would have, in the early days, not understood each other's need to be at a lot of events and do a lot of tastings, over weekends and late nights. But because we were in the same industry, that really did work well for us to sort of find each other. Yeah.
The year you got married, the year you kicked off the wine, the year this whole new journey began on so many different levels, and it began with just a single wine with a really interesting name. And I have to confess, I initially thought it was nom because it was nom 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 nom. Oh, I do like it. And that still applies. And I would still happily argue that should be the reason for the name, but it is a little deeper than that. And you probably, for sensible marketing reasons, gave a shorter version of the full name.
Absolutely.
Particularly as the wine takes over the world. But it's a really nice story.
Yeah, so Nom stands for Nom Kubulwane, which is this ancient Zulu goddess that the ladies prayed to by climbing to the higher lying hills to feel closer to the gods. And apparently she is responsible for beer brewing, agriculture, fertility. So I thought, you know what, we need to speak our African stories. We need to tell the world about all these beautiful things. And since Keimensrad is such a mysterious vineyard, I thought it was a really suitable name. And then of course, Nom for short. Nom also stands for Nombulelo, which is, gratitude. And that's something that's accompanied my journey all along. I think if one lives one's life with, 2 times as much appreciation as love, one has always great success. And I think that's sort of rung true in my life so far.
And it will continue. It's a terrific name. It sums up so much of what you've done, but also who you are. And it is a name given to a Pinot Noir, because that is what you kicked off with. Was that always going to be the case? Was that the grape that really found its way into your heart?
Yeah, I think I was privileged enough, at an early age to start drinking wine. It was a bit different for Roland's story, actually. He started with Tassenberg. I started with my parents' really great wines,
Your glasses of Gerber Chambertin, and there he is drinking Tussies.
So I very quickly migrated to Pinot and just realized that, I love Pinot because it has this power, but without the weight, and it has so much texture on the palate and this velvety tannin. So it was just absolutely my heart grape. And I knew that I needed to make a Pinot if I could ever have access to good grapes, because, that is the tricky part with Pinot. You can't just make Pinot from any vineyard. It has to be really a top site. So over the years, I've managed to sort of cherry pick 2 of these sites. And the wines are really getting exciting now that I'm, 10 years into the game. I think I'm really finding a good spot now with the wine.
So I'm going to take very slight issue with you there, which I do quite bravely because you're a world-renowned winemaker and I am not. You say that it's starting to get really exciting now. I was lucky enough yesterday to drink through the full decade. Your wines have been very exciting for 10 years, Jessica.
Okay. Why, thank you.
And the minuscule, I felt very honoured because I think you've got 6 bottles left of your 700 production run. We got to try one of those very early ones, and it's held beautifully. It's still an incredible space, and it's a great testament for fine Pinot Noir to be able to age. But the thing I loved most about yesterday was not drinking the wine, which was lovely. I really did enjoy it, but watching you talk through that story and see just how rich and vivid the memories were and how much this whole experience has meant to you. That, for me, was the real joy of the experience yesterday.
Thank you. It was such a privilege to have you there to witness that moment. I mean, it was quite special for me as well to be able to open up all 10 wines in one room with, all these witnesses around and see how the migration of the wine has gone. And I mean, the winemaking has stayed fairly similar. I think the work that we put into the vineyard has really improved the wines over the years. One could see, bringing down the pH, increasing the acid, just giving a bit more balance to the wine. But yeah, I love the new expression from 24 because it's, it's my home vintage. It's the one that I've actually been able to make in my own cellar. And so I think I'll become a little bit more confident with the wine now.
You have this ability to now look back on the decade. There must have been times, even with this eternally cheerful demeanor you have and this clear ability to take on hard work and not be scared by it, to sometimes have thought as you got up at 4 a.m. to go and make some wine, is this all really worth it? When you get a day like yesterday, when you get the chance to look back on this body of work that is by no means finished, but is already substantial, that yep, those mornings were worth it, that effort really has paid off. I've got something so tangible to be enormously proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had moments, where during bottling, for example, I've had a tummy bug, but you cannot leave the bottling to anyone else, So just quickly, while we're putting everything in bottle, run away, come back. So, those are the moments where you're like, oof, it's a lot of hard work, and especially with young children, not letting you sleep in the first few years, having to get up at early hours of the day to make sure the grapes get processed. It hasn't always been easy, but I think it's my life's work, and what is easy? Life shouldn't be easy. It's all about the peace we find back in the balance of the day-to-day rhythm, and then there will be times that are challenging, but you find your peace back when you have that rhythm. And I think the winemaking game is so fun because it's only really 3 months of the year where you're stretched to your absolute maximum capacity, and for the rest of the year you can go back to nature and find your peace there, especially in the vineyards. That helps a lot.
Oh, and I agree entirely on the challenges part. I was recently on a business class flight where the champagne was non-vintage. So we all have our challenges to go through, Jessica. Yours possibly slightly more onerous than mine. You started with the Pinot Noir. You have now broadened out. You have not just the nom, but you have the om, which I'm convinced was a printing error at the labeling company, and you just had to stick with it because it was too much to change it. But there is also a partner wine, and you've brought some of this along. Before we drink it though, one of the most captivating elements of what you produce is the aesthetic, and your labels are impossible to miss. They stand out not just because they are so striking, but because as you look at it, you start to get a bit more involved in what is clearly a story of sorts. Give me the history and also the artist at work here.
All right, so this is the Chi Riesling, which is a collaboration effort between the artist who painted this in watercolor. Her name is Isabella Kuyers. Her parents are also both fine artists located in Greyton. She's actually just returned from London. She finished her master's in art and she's working on a new label, which is exciting. So the Chi Riesling stands for life force and energy. And Chi also stands for Chiota, which is this African rain god depicted on the front label. And we discussed a lot of the flora and fauna that you find surrounding the vineyards. So, in South Africa, we have something very unique to boast about, and that is that a lot of the vineyards are located right next to nature reserve areas. And in this case, we have, the black-bearded protea, the Diza, the April's Fool's flower, and I think we need to speak about that amazing fynbos kingdom of flowers and fauna that we have. And so that gives a bit of a promise of what lies in the bottle with the sort of fresh colors of red and greens and yellows. This is a really floral, fruity style of Riesling, made in an off-dry style, and it's been a great, very well-received wine. I love the wine myself, and I then just had a designer put it into a certain format. So that's it.
Well,
Voila.
I'm going to be. I don't think I've sampled. Cheers. This particular vintage just yet, so I am excited. There's been a lot more Riesling drunk at Chateau Nickel of late because we have a very badly behaved chef called David Higgs who drops by unannounced on a regular basis, and he has a near medical obsession with Riesling.
Oh, that's great.
Loves it across the board, and the Chi has come up in our quiet evenings of indulgence over time.
I'm glad to hear. So 2025 is still very fresh, quite primal still, but I just love how it's such an expression of sunshine in a glass. This is 80% Algan fruit and 20% Upper Hill and Arder Valley. I've managed to secure 3 vineyards now that I work with, and it's exciting that the latest vineyard addition is on the eastern side of Elgin, and it was actually planted in a collaboration with Ibn Sadi for his Sekiwa wines back in the day. And this man who's farming this vineyard is so passionate about soil health that I'm very excited about further conversations with him, because I think that is where we need to go as, not only winemakers, but as a human species, to try and figure out how to increase the soil health around us, just to be able to unlock all those good things out of the ground to nourish ourselves, but also produce healthier and more disease-resistant plants.
You clearly have both a love of Riesling and a knack of making it rather well. Was there a conscious nod to the German side of your heritage and choosing this as a white grape to play with?
I'm not really sure. I think I was just really inspired by our trip to, the different winemaking regions in Germany. Of course, I've been exposed to more Rieslings maybe than others simply because of my German heritage, but I couldn't believe there weren't many Rieslings in South Africa. I tasted some of the fine Rieslings from South Africa and I thought, wow, we should have many more. But looking at the plantings on the Saurwein records, there aren't many Riesling vineyards left. The good news is, though, that Elgin is at least planting a few more new vineyards, and we definitely will also go that route. Once we've got our Pinot in the ground, we're going to try and focus on planting some Riesling in Stanford.
I'm very glad you've added this to it, and I look forward to the day when it comes from exactly at home, and I'm sure that won't be too far away. The decade that you've been through has been remarkable. You've got 25 years into 10 years comfortably, but there is no sign of stopping. You and Roland now have this wonderful place out in Stanford, and I know there's so much that's planned for there. If we were to sit down in 10 years' time and we're doing the 20-year vertical and we're celebrating everything that is Saurwein and the project that you'd have, what would make you happiest to be able to tell me that the next 10 years have allowed you to do?
I think, just being able to plant some vineyards, to look after our soils, to, I think, encourage our community and the people around us to take back responsibility for their own food chain or their food supply chain. Learn a little bit how to keep backyard chickens, have a little hive in the backyard. I think we all need to be a little bit more conscious about what we put into our bodies, and it'll be great to be part of that journey and to unlock a little bit of that potential in each one of us, and to create great wines and to be able to share that with the world. That's a great privilege.
All right, well, I think those last ones are absolutely guaranteed because you did already wonderfully, and that is only going to grow. The wine itself is a delight, but far more so is the chance to share what's been a terrific story, and it's been wonderful watching the Saurwein brand grow and to watch the winemaking dream come to life so wonderfully. I look forward to many more glasses and bottles with yourself and Roland, and to watching this already incredible journey continue to expand.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate it. And it's great to have been on your show today. Thank you.
The struggles I have having to drink wonderful Riesling from an outstandingly gifted winemaker to kick off my day. If my darling wife is watching, I hope the spreadsheets in the office have gone well today. A really special guest with a great story and a wonderfully vivid illustration of how hard work and determination and a very clear dream can come together quite wonderfully, with the results for all of us to enjoy. My very special guest on Dan Really Likes Wine this week, the wonderful Jessica Saurwein. Cheers.
Thank you.